Sarah here. So, funny story. When I recorded all of the video for this episode, I didn't realize it at the time until I went to start editing, but actually all of the videos recorded with zero sound. They're completely silent. And working with a dog is a little difficult to redo things a lot of the time, so we are actually going to just keep with the silent clips, and instead of having audio attached, I'm going to just say here all of the things that I plan to say. I'll just be down here in a little box in the corner of your screen, trying to line up these words with that video as best I can. Please enjoy Wolfman. Wolfman deals with body horror, disease, and identity as a family goes to visit the dad's rural childhood home, only to be attacked on the way by a monster. And though they get safely inside the house, the dad got attacked and cut by this monster and soon begins to change, leaving the mom to decide if she and her daughter are safer with the monster inside their house or outside. Dun dun dun! Very scary setup. I am not typically a horror movie fan, but to do this video, I felt it imperative to actually go and watch the movie. So while I've recorded all the video before I saw the movie, I'm recording this audio video for you right now, right after getting back from seeing the movie. So stick around to see my reaction to the movie, kind of my review of it, and if I regret my choice of doing this movie or not. Yeah. Stay tuned! One of the things that drew me to this movie, in addition to the cool monsters, is the body horror element and the physical transformation from man to Wolfman. And since I'm a human who lives with a house wolf, and I studied biology, I wanted to talk about the biological process and changes that would have to occur for a man to become deserving of the title Wolfman. The main elements of the transformation sequence that we're going to talk about today are the vision, the face shape change, and the teeth. And then at the end, we'll wrap it all up with an Arbor ability check to see if he could survive me becoming a Wolfman. Here we go! First up, vision. In the transformation trailer, which is linked below, or you can see parts up there, at the end of it, he gets up and looks at the forest and it illuminates and brightens in front of him. So we are going to talk about the rights and wrongs of this sequence. Our eyes point straight ahead, and this means that we see with both of our eyes for most of our field of vision. This is called binocular vision when you're seeing with two eyes at once. So human vision is mostly binocular for the whole thing, except for a little bit at the edges here. You can see I'm demonstrating up there. A little bit at the edges that we can only see out of one eye for. And you can actually test this by sticking your hand straight out to the side and wiggle your hands so they're just within your field of vision if you're looking forward. And now close your right eye and shake your right hand, and it disappears. Now do the same on the other side. Close your left eye, shake your left hand, and it no longer can see it. So this is, we have binocular vision for the most part, but once we get just to the edges, basically our vision's blocked by our nose, we can't see our shaking hand. But dogs and wolves have eyes that are set 25 degrees apart laterally. This means that their field of vision, they have less binocular vision, space that both of their eyes see, but they have a wider field of vision overall, which is partly why they're so much harder to sneak up on than we are. But the main thing in the trailer about vision is all about light and color. Now, humans and dogs, we both have things called photoreceptors in our eyes, and these are specialized cells that can detect light. And there are two types of photoreceptors. There are rods and there are cones. Now, rods are really good at detecting low light levels, while cones are used for color detection. So, while both humans and wolves have rods and cones, humans have 3 color cones, approximately red, blue, and green. So we can see a whole bunch of colors like this that you're seeing right now. But wolves and dogs only have 2 color cones. They have blue and yellow, approximately. So if you were looking through a dog or wolf's eyes, you would see something like this. This means that all greens appear a bit yellowish to dogs, purples appear blue, and reds are kind of this brown color. And then for low light vision, dogs and wolves actually have more rods than humans do, which means that they can see better in low light or dark than we can. So if we look back at the end of this transformation scene, if Wolfman's eyes were more wolf than man, then this tree that gets bright green should not be that green because wolves don't have that many cones. But if Wolfman's eyes were more man than wolf, the forest should not be this bright and illuminated because humans have a lot fewer rods than wolves. So I guess that means that Wolfman just took the best of both wolf and human vision and merged it together. Good, good. Yeah, no, I wasn't scared enough to see this movie. Yeah, okay, moving on. In the transformation sequence, we also see a moment where the cheekbones jut out. Now, we all know that wolves and dogs can smell a lot better than humans can, and this is why I think that that part of the transformation is taking place. Now, I didn't ask anybody, and if you disagree or you have a different theory as to why this face shape change is taking place, please let me know in the comments, but until I hear from you, this is my theory. Ever notice that wolves and a lot of dog species have much longer noses than humans do? I know it's a subtle difference, but if you look closely, I know you can spot it. Now, this larger nasal cavity gives wolves and dogs their super sniffer powers for 3 main reasons. First up is that the bigger the nasal cavity is, the more room there are for specialized bones called turbinate bones. And these bones help to warm, moisten, and filter incoming scents, which helps the wolf, or dog, identify what the smell is. Similarly, and my second reason, the bigger the nose you have, the more space you have for mucous membranes. And it's in mucous membranes that the super sensitive olfactory receptors are, that scents go into to get sorted out, and those signals travel from the olfactory receptors up into your brain to figure out what that smell is. And finally, third is that within that big nose, running right down the middle, is something called a vomer bone. And this splits the nasal passage into a left and a right channel. And this is really important for wolves and dogs figuring out where a scent is coming from, because it will travel into one channel only, it can't cross over. So if a wolf is sniffing and they sniff something and it comes in a bit more into the right nostril, they know that it probably came from the right side rather than their left side, and they can start tracking it down to quite a precise location. So, popping out those cheekbones might belie more going on biologically under the surface than we can see to make our wolfman scent more wolfy. Which also just really makes him scarier and scarier, so let's move along! Where would any good werewolf be without a good set of fangs? So I'm going to tell you some fun human and wolf and dog tooth facts while I try to do what my vet keeps telling me to do, and that is brush Arbor's teeth. Now, the last time I tried to do this, he did break the toothbrush, so wish her luck. Yeah. Teeth facts. Adult humans, on average, have 32 teeth. 4 canines, 12 molars, 4 wisdom teeth, and 8 incisors. Adult dogs have 42 teeth, with their canines featuring much more prominently, especially on dogs like Arbor with his big old fangs. Adult wolves also have 42 teeth, with 20 in the upper jaw, 2 canines, 8 premolars, 4 molars, and 6 incisors, and 22 in the lower jaw, 2 canines, 8 premolars, 6 molars, and 6 incisors. Canines are the big pointy teeth, much bigger and pointier, of course, on dogs and wolves, and these are used for puncturing and gripping prey. They're also called fangs. Incisors are the little ones along the front, and these are used for nibbling along meat off of a bone, or if you've ever given your dog watermelon and they just kind of like chomp with their front little teeth along the rind, that's them using their incisors. And then molars and premolars are used for grinding and crushing. Fun. But even though they have about the same teeth, a wolf's bite is way more powerful than a dog's bite. Dog bites have been measured, depending on the breed, from about 100 up to 700 psi, or pounds per square inch, of force, while a wolf's bite has been reported to be up to 1,200 to 1,500 psi, just like over double. I would not try to brush a wolf's teeth. Absolutely not. And then a human's bite force comes in at a measly 120 psi. So we're at the very, very low end of the dog bite force range. And you want to know what dog measures 100 psi? You guessed it. It's a Chihuahua. Tiny little guy, and that matches us. So, great. And then, for an extra fun fact, dogs actually have higher rates of tooth loss, periodontal disease, fractures, and gum abscesses compared to wild wolves. Huh. So that was exhausting. So I'll keep trying, I promise, vet, but for the most part, we'll just go back to giving Arbor some dental chews. He likes them, so it's fine. So, overall, wolf teeth, especially their canines, are way better at biting and tearing compared to human teeth. Couple that with a hugely improved bite force, which I think is part of why Wolfman sets his jaw in the transformation scene as well. And you can understand why a man would have to up his tooth game in order to be considered a wolfman. Moving on!
Geek Tropical is a US-based small business with over 400 amazing geeky and nerdy designs available on super soft button-up shirts like Arbor and I are wearing, or you can snag them on Hawaiian shirts, bucket hats, dresses, or even kids' Hawaiian shirts. You'll find designs for D&D dudes, science sweeties, fantasy fiends, botany bros, anime appreciators, queer queens, and more. Whatever your interest, Geek Tropical probably has a design for you. All of their designs are licensed from artists who actually get royalties for every sale of their designs. Plus, Geek Tropical has a firm no AI art stance, so you can rest assured knowing that every purchase you make will support a geeky or nerdy individual just like you. And that's not all. Geek Tropical prints to order to avoid a lot of the waste from large batch fast fashion processes. They use a trademarked, super soft, stretchy, moisture-wicking fabric, and they have over 1,500 5-star reviews. So if you'd like to join the party, use the link in the description to help support this channel, and use code ARBOR, that's ARBOR, at checkout to get 10% off your purchase. Thank you to Geek Tropical for sponsoring this video and sustainably crafting such awesome geek-tastic clothing.
Okay, so I just got back from seeing the Wolfman movie. I was very scared to go see it, but I made a wise decision. I went and saw it in the morning, which was actually quite helpful to leave the theater in the daylight when you're watching a movie about surviving the night. So I've got all day to forget about it after doing this and editing this. It's fine. So, my reaction to the Wolfman movie. It was scary. It got me. Doesn't take a lot to get me with scary movies, but I really appreciated the way that it was done. I went with a friend who knew nothing about this one, but has seen a lot more werewolf stuff than I have. I knew a lot about this movie going in, but not as much about previous werewolf movies. And I found that this one, it really created its own little world for the Wolfman story. It felt like it took it a lot out of the mythology side of it, the magic side of things, and it felt much more like real, you know, in that if there were actually a disease that could make a human more wolf-like, what would that process be? How would that affect the person? And how would that transformation take place? It was very, very interesting from that perspective. It had some very good jump scares. It got me every time. I managed to not scream out loud, which was a win for me. But it does them quite well. It builds up the anticipation really nicely, and it doesn't always jump scare you, so you don't quite know every time what's going to happen, which is fun. And it is really well acted. The practical effects are beautiful, terrifying. They're scary and gory, but they're quite well done. It doesn't go too deep into body horror, but you can see those sort of like Cronenberg-esque moments where it just makes you really uncomfortable watching something happen. You go, oh no, it's visceral. Like I can feel that happening, which is the mark of good body horror, you know? So I really liked that. The transformation into Wolfman, some people were talking about in this movie that they were disappointed in the way that the transformation was done because he didn't become like super duper hairy like we usually see. When you think of a werewolf, you think of like wolf level fur. Whereas this, it really rode a line where you got like a little bit furrier, but that wasn't the main thing that was happening. It was much more about these senses and these abilities rather than the hair, which I thought was a unique take and pretty cool. And also very upsetting because he stayed quite human, but was clearly not human anymore. nervous about that. But my favorite thing about this movie was definitely the showing of the transformation from not only the wife and daughter's point of view, but also the Wolfman's point of view, which was very, very well done. It was a very cool cinematic choice that they made in conversations between the daughter or the wife and the husband, the Wolfman. It would go from like the daughter or wife perspective into his perspective. So it would go from normal vision and hearing into this weird world where colors, it was really bright, even though they were in a really dark house, and their like the wife and daughter's eyes were really reflective and glowing. You could see them, and sound was really, really muffled. It was like they were underwater almost. So you can really see how it would be hard to like retain your humanity if you can no longer communicate and you can no longer understand these people in front of you, in addition to whatever biologically is happening in your brain to make you more of a predator. So I thought that that was a very unique take on it, and it frames the whole transformation in a way that I really appreciated, and you can really then empathize with this person who's literally turning into a monster, which was cool and scary, super terrifying. And the movie deals a lot with these themes of loss and grief, and it does it quite well. I really enjoyed those parts of it. And then favorite individual moment in the movie was Wolfman is getting wolfier, and at one point he leaps over a couch and confronts his wife face to face, who has been obviously horrified and terrified and scared this whole time. But he gets right up close to her, and she just remains stoic, and she doesn't cower, she doesn't run away in fear, she doesn't cry, she just holds his eye contact, stands upright. And you can see in this moment of predators looking at each other, facing off, or standing up to him and saying I know who you are, I love you, you don't scare me, don't do this sort of thing. And I was waiting for a moment like that in the movie, in the sense of standing up to a bully or to a predator, and that dominance and that hierarchy sort of idea of it. And how they say don't run away from a predator because you just trigger their need to chase you thing. And so this really had that vibe of I'm not going to run away from you, that's not going to do any good, I'm going to do this. And it works in the movie, and he walks away from him and he doesn't attack, which I was waiting for that moment, and I'm really glad that we got it. It was a cool moment. It's a cool movie. It does have some very effective jump scares and some kind of creepy body horror stuff, but overall it's not super duper scary, and it all takes place within its own world, its own little world of this story, which is cool. And I would love to see how the next step would go for this wife and daughter after the conclusion of it, they show up back home with no husband, and how do they explain that, and what would that story be? I don't think we need to see that story, but it definitely leaves questions of but what next? Is she gonna get arrested for murder because he's gone, he's just disappeared? The daughter's fully gonna be traumatized. Are they gonna move somewhere remote, or do they need to be around people and in light all the time forever? Who knows? We'll never know that story, but it's always fun to think about what happens next. So there you go. There's my review. I do not regret seeing it. I was very worried. I was getting very stressed. I brought a stress ball into the theater, which I think helped a lot, because I could just squeeze it when I get really, really tense as I watch these scary movies. And it was fun. So I think I'll probably see more horror movies in the future. I'll just be careful about which ones, and definitely lean into the monster side of things, because they're very cool. All right, time for the ability check. Arbor ability check. Today we are going to roll to see if I was transforming into a werewolf, would Arbor be wise enough to know when to cut and run? Wisdom might seem like a weird choice, because there are so many rolls we could have done for battling a werewolf. We could have done Constitution to outrun me, or Dexterity to dodge my attacks, or even Strength to see if he could just restrain me and make me not a problem anymore. But this movie focuses more on the wisdom side of things. It focuses on loss and grief and making these hard decisions. So wisdom felt like the right choice for this role, for this version of the Wolfman story. As we discovered when we did our dog D&D extravaganza, Arbor's wisdom score is a 13, giving him a +1 to whatever he rolls. And we're going to do things a little differently. Instead of me setting a difficulty and doing a DC check where Arbor has to just get above a certain number, he's actually going to be rolling against my charisma, my persuasion, if I was a werewolf. So using D&D werewolf stats, that gives me a charisma of 10, so I have +0 to this roll. So Arbor's got a +1 and I have a +0. So I'll roll first, and as you can see, I rolled pretty well. Unfortunately for Arbor, he's got to beat a 19. And then Arbor rolls, and Arbor, Arbor doesn't quite get there. Even with advantage, we see this this second screen, Arbor is not quite wise enough to know when to abandon me if I was turning into a monster. Sorry, bud. But it's very sweet. You know, I guess that means he really loves me after all. And that does it. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Wolfman biology. It was a scary time, but also pretty fun. And it was nice pushing myself and testing myself. And there's actually a lot more thematically linked science stuff that we could talk about with Wolfman. We could talk about practical makeup effects, we could talk about body horror and why it affects us the way that it does, talk about identity or relationship dynamics, or the physiological and psychological effects of loss and grief and trauma, etc., etc., etc. So if any of that sounded interesting to you, or if you have a different scientifically related question about the Wolfman movie, please let me know in the comments and we might just get to it. Thank you so much for sticking it out to the end. Please remember to like, subscribe, become a part of our curious community, and we'll see you next time. Let's go!